Welcome to the Re-Entry Archive. Ride the Wave. A Psilocybin Experience Report from erowid.org. I started by weighing out mushrooms until my scale said 10 grams. Then, in batches, I stuffed as much as I could chew into my mouth. Mushrooms taste bad, but not that bad, so it isn't horrible. When I started to feel it, I went and laid on my bed and turned off the lights. I quickly became absorbed by closed-eyed visuals. Fractals like a symmetrically wrinkled blanket, with squares flowing in and out of the wrinkles. I would periodically open my eyes and look at my feet and around the room, which still appeared normal. I looked at my phone. My timer app said it had been 1 hour and 15 minutes since ingestion. I remember repeatedly looking at the timer on my phone, and despite what felt like an infinite amount of time having passed, the time didn't change, even by a minute. My overwhelming sense of the experience is one of extreme positivity. Sometime after 1 hour and 15, I got up to pee. I understood what I was doing, but afterwards, I couldn't remember if I'd done it or not, or how long ago. Around this time, I essentially blacked out. I don't think I actually lost consciousness, but I don't remember anything from 1 hour 15 to 3 hours. Probably around 3 hours, I sat up on the edge of my bed. Waves of nausea came while I was laying, and I thought that at the time, I should be on a come down. So I sat up and tried to record my experience on my computer. While sitting up, I saw that the visual fractals I had been seeing expanded to everything else. Time, space, sense of self. Moments of coherence in different aspects of perception flowed into each other. It wasn't just synesthesia, but between every aspect of existence. Throughout, I had this sense of an underlying stable narrative, and I could periodically check in on myself by coming out of the experience and give myself brief lucidity. I remember after coming out and feeling absolutely awestruck. I was speechless, trying to understand what I was experiencing. I felt like I had passed through some kind of perceptual singularity, and nothing would ever be the same. That my existence was now indelibly marked, and could be divided into two halves. What came before, and what came after. At some point around maybe 5 hours into the experience, it became more coherent and stable, with everything unified into a single narrative. The universe, God, talking to itself through experience and existence, creation. And the signature of God is the full embodiment of the flow, the wave that is the interface between the past and the future. I've never believed in any gods. I didn't at the time. When I wrote God here, I was almost certainly referring to the concept of consciousness manufacturing the apparent physical reality in idealism. God here is a mind or collection of minds that generate the world around us through what incidentally amounts to fantasy or imagination or hallucination, though potentially a deliberate one. I don't actually believe in this model of reality, and I didn't at the time, but I had a very strong sense of it during the trip. I was at this moment just talking to myself and riding the wave. common motif in this trip was waves. Waves in hyperspace. Waves in the signature constructing the universe, and particularly waves of nausea. I kept saying, "Ride the wave," like a stereotypical surfer dude in California. I felt it was funny. It was funny. Everything is the wave, and certain things were obviously more wave-like. At around 7 hours, 2 a.m, I perceived I was on the come down and things were normal. Nausea was better, so I stood up. My perception was that my room was all of existence. At this point, I remember feeling like I had actually done some serious damage to my brain or body, because though I thought things were normal, I could barely walk. It was a serious struggle to even place one foot in front of the other. I had an oatmeal container in the corner of the room that I was using to hold pens and things, and the guy's face in the container seemed to take up half the room. The whole room would occasionally grow incredibly large and sometimes shrink until I felt I was going to be crushed. Standing and walking was hard. It was as though I was learning to walk again. Everything felt unfamiliar and like I was doing it for the first time. Even my own internal narrative, imagination, desires, memories, all felt unfamiliar and deadened. Even to this day, my imagination works differently. Not necessarily better or worse, just different. I tried looking at stuff on my computer, and everything on it was completely incomprehensible. I couldn't read anything. I got distracted with completely normal things, like a mouse movement, for example. I laid down to try and sleep at 3 a.m. Everything felt uncomfortable. During the 5-hour portion, all my expressions were pure, and I felt like my true self. I felt around that time I was in a reality that was strange, and I was normal. Not that I wasn't normal, and my perceptions of normal reality were strange. My sense of embodiment in my sober existence slowly returned. I fell back into the trip in waves, which slowly became less intense. At around 24 hours, the waves of nausea were still very weak. I was still under the influence, however, pupils stopped being dilated at maybe 14 hours after ingestion. I walked on a trail near my house sometime in the range of 12 hours to 40 hours after ingestion. This is the first time I noticed colours seeming more vibrant and everything feeling more alive. That feeling was permanent, and colours and things still feel more vibrant and alive. Then I wrote a synopsis of things I felt during the trip. Existence is God talking to itself. The trip never began or ended. The existence of the wave of experience between the past and the future. The voice of God is existence. It is impossible to prepare yourself for this experience. You don't have to have lived through an experience to learn from it. So let's take a few moments to reflect upon what this journey might mean. There is no need to believe every psychedelic insight literally, nor dismiss them all as delusion. The value of these experiences is in the impact they have on how you live, not on what you believe. The motif of the wave was central to this experience. This raises the question, what does the wave symbolize? Perhaps the ebb and flow of life. or the emotional give and take that is foundational to all relationships. Maybe it symbolizes the approach of a seemingly insurmountable challenge. Whatever it is, even as the psychedelic tsunami approached, the mantra, "Ride the wave," found its way through. A realization that even when the going gets tough, there is an internal reservoir of self-belief that can be tapped into. Ride the wave. When no one else supports you, you can be your own advocate. Symbolically, the wave is a paradoxical and timeless force of nature, capable of eroding cliffs over millennia. But in doing so, it is able to create vast beaches. It is the destroyer and the creator, an entity which threatens to drag us into the depths, but also one which can propel us forward if only we are able to harness it. Riding the wave is challenging and poses real risks, and so it takes courage to try. But the payoff can be huge. Even to ride the wave for a moment and see the shore from that vantage point may be validation enough that your effort was worthwhile. The dream, of course, would be to ride the wave all the way back to the shore. But this success is not possible unless you first try, because ultimately it is not the riding of the wave that is the important thing, it's the trying. Ride the wave.